I am sitting in my car right now, parked outside a sleek downtown office building, holding an engagement ring in my palm. My hands are shaking, but not from the cold December air seeping through the cracked window. 3 hours ago, I walked into that building thinking tonight would be a turning point in my relationship with Amanda. I was right about the turning point part. I just had no idea it would turn in the opposite direction. I never imagined that loving someone could make me feel so small, so invisible, so completely worthless. But here I am alone in this parking lot, staring at this ring, feeling a strange mix of heartbreak and relief that I cannot quite explain yet. Before I tell you how I ended up here holding this ring in my parking lot, I would love to know where are you watching from tonight. If this story resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to hear how a single evening can change everything you thought you knew about love. And maybe, just maybe, my story will help you recognize when it is time to walk away from someone who does not see your worth. Now let me take you back to where it all began. Let me tell you about my life before tonight. My name is Matthew, and I am an elementary school teacher. I teach 3rd grade at Lincoln Elementary, and I love what I do. Every morning I wake up, genuinely excited to go to work. There is something magical about watching an 8-year-old's face light up when they finally understand a math concept they have been struggling with, or when they read their first chapter book all by themselves. The pay is not impressive. I make around $45,000 a year, which is enough to cover my bills, save a little, and occasionally treat myself to a nice dinner. But the money has never been the point for me. When a parent sends me an email saying their child came home excited about science for the first time ever, or when a struggling student finally gains confidence in reading that is worth more than any 6-figure salary, then there is Amanda. Or, I should say, there was Amanda. We met 2 years ago through a mutual friend at a coffee shop in the city. She was a corporate attorney at Sterling & Associates, one of the biggest law firms downtown. She made around $180,000 a year, drove a luxury car, and wore designer suits that probably cost more than my monthly rent. But when we first met, none of that mattered. She told me she found my passion for teaching refreshing and genuine. She said she was tired of dating men who only cared about money and status. She made me feel like I was enough, exactly as I was. 6 months ago, I proposed to her in the park where we had our first date. It was simple, romantic, and she said yes. I saved for 2 months to buy that ring, a simple gold band with a small diamond, nothing extravagant, but it came from my heart. She cried when I got down on one knee, and I thought we were building something real, something that would last. But somewhere in the past few months, things started to shift. The change was subtle at first, like a crack in a foundation that you do not notice until the whole structure starts to crumble. It started with small comments, little jabs that she would frame as jokes but left me feeling bruised. We were at a dinner party with some of her friends about 2 months ago. One of them asked me about my work, and I got excited telling them about this science project my students were doing, building miniature ecosystems in jars. Amanda interrupted with a laugh and said, "Well, at least someone gets to play with glue sticks all day." Everyone laughed uncomfortably, and I tried to laugh along, but it stung. That night when I brought it up in the car, she told me I was being too sensitive, that it was just a joke. Then there were the conversations about money. We were planning the wedding, talking about buying a house eventually, and Amanda said, "I guess I will be the breadwinner. Good thing one of us has a real career." I pushed back gently, reminding her that teaching is a real career, and she sighed like I was missing the point. "You know what I mean," she said. "I am just being practical." I convinced myself she was just stressed from work, that she did not really mean it the way it sounded. The worst was when we ran into some of her colleagues at a bar downtown. They asked what I did, and before I could answer, Amanda jumped in with, "He is in education." It was so vague, so clearly evasive. When someone pressed for details, she said he teaches kids with a tone that made it sound like I volunteered at a petting zoo. I realized in that moment that Amanda was embarrassed by what I did. She did not want her successful lawyer friends to know she was engaged to an elementary school teacher. A week before the party, Amanda told me about her company's annual holiday party. It was a big deal, she explained. Partners would be there, senior attorneys, important clients. And then she said the words, that should have been my first red flag. "I need you there. It is important for my image. Not for us not to share an important night together. For her image." But I pushed that observation aside, desperate to believe the best. In the days leading up to the party, Amanda kept reminding me about the dress code. Business formal, Matthew. Please do not embarrass me. I went out and bought a new suit, spending $400 I had saved for a weekend trip we had been planning. I wanted to make her proud. I wanted to fit into her world. I practiced small talk, thought about topics I could discuss with her colleagues, I was genuinely trying. On the day of the party, I left school early. Something I rarely do. I went home and got ready carefully. New suit cologne made sure my shoes were polished. Amanda looked stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. In the car on the way to the venue, she kept giving me instructions. Just be yourself, she said. But maybe do not talk too much about work. These people are very successful, so just you know. She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. Do not make me look bad. Do not remind them that you are just a teacher. The venue was a ballroom at a 5-star hotel. There were champagne fountains, a live jazz band, ice sculptures, shaped like the company logo. Everyone was dripping in wealth and success. Despite my new suit, I felt completely out of place. And Amanda, the woman I thought I knew, transformed the moment we walked through those doors. Her voice changed, her laugh changed, even the way she stood changed. She became someone I did not recognize. The first people Amanda introduced me to were a group of 3 attorneys standing near the bar. "This is Matthew, my fiancé," she said. They smiled politely, and one of them asked, "What do you do, Matthew?" "I am an elementary school teacher," I said, trying to sound confident. "I teach 3rd grade. There was a pause, just a beat too long, before one of them said, "Oh, that is nice," in a tone that made it clear it was anything but nice to him. Another one said, "That must be simple work," and the third added, "Do you get summers off?" Must be nice. I felt myself shrinking but tried to keep smiling. Amanda did not defend me. Instead, she said, "Yes, he has a very flexible schedule," emphasizing the word flexible, in a way that made it sound like I was unemployed. We moved on to another group, and I felt the first real wave of betrayal wash over me. She was not just failing to stand up for me. She was joining in. As the evening progressed, I collected wounds like someone walking through thorns. A senior partner named Gerald, probably in his mid-50s with gray hair and an expensive watch, came over to talk. He was discussing real estate investments and stock portfolios, topics I had nothing to contribute to. When he finally acknowledged me, he said to Amanda, "Well, at least you will not have to worry about him spending your money on expensive hobbies," and everyone laughed. Amanda laughed too and said, "Right, he is low maintenance." Like I was a pet, not a person. Like I was something she owned, not someone she loved. Later, I stood alone holding a glass of champagne I had barely touched, while Amanda was pulled away by a group of female attorneys. I could hear fragments of their conversation, words like marrying down and trophy husband, floating back to me. I was not certain they were talking about me, but the sidelong glances in my direction made it pretty clear. I felt sick. A younger associate named Brad, probably around 28, with perfectly styled hair and an oversized confidence, tried to be friendly. He asked about teaching, and I started to tell him about a project I was doing with my students, helping them understand empathy through literature. He cut me off with, "That sounds wholesome. I guess someone has to do it right. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real law." I tried to explain that teaching has its own pressures, that shaping young minds carries enormous responsibility, but he just smiled condescendingly. Sure, he said. "But I mean real career pressure. Billable hours, client demands, actual stakes." I felt my profession, my passion, my entire life's work being dismissed as a hobby. Throughout the night, Amanda kept her distance from me. When someone important approached, she would forget to introduce me, leaving me standing there like a piece of furniture. When I tried to join conversations, she would subtly change the subject or steer the group away. I felt invisible. Worse than invisible. I felt like a liability. Then came dinner. We sat at a table with 2 senior partners and their spouses. The conversation revolved around year-end bonuses, high-profile cases, promotions. I had nothing to add. I just sat there cutting my steak into smaller and smaller pieces, trying to look engaged while feeling completely disconnected. One of the spouses, a woman who introduced herself as the wife of a partner, asked me politely about my work. Before I could answer, Amanda jumped in with a summary so brief and dismissive it made teaching sound like a part-time gig at a daycare. After dinner, people mingled again, forming larger groups. The alcohol had been flowing freely, and everyone was louder, more relaxed. Amanda was at the center of a circle of about 20 people telling a story about a case she had won. I stood at the edge of the group trying to smile, trying to nod at the right moments, but I felt like I was drowning. The room was full of people, but I had never felt more alone. Then a senior partner named Douglas raised his champagne glass. "Let us toast to Amanda," he said loudly. "One of our rising stars." Everyone clapped and cheered. Douglas turned to Amanda with a smile. "And Amanda, when are you settling down?" "Oh wait, I heard you are engaged." He looked around, spotted me at the edge of the circle. "What does your fiancé do? Is he in law too?" The room quieted down, waiting for Amanda's response. This was the moment. This was her chance to stand up for me, to proudly tell these people that I was a teacher, that I did work that mattered. I looked at her, hoping, almost praying. Amanda looked at me, and in her eyes I saw something I had been refusing to see for months. Embarrassment. Shame. She turned back to the group with a smile, and what came out of her mouth shattered something fundamental inside me. "Oh, Matthew," she said, her voice light and playful. "He is a babysitter, basically." There was a second of silence, confusion, and then a few people started to laugh. Someone asked a babysitter, and Amanda, warming up to her audience, said, "Well, he calls it teaching, but it is third graders. So finger painting, nap time, supervision, you know the works." The laughter spread through the group like wildfire. Douglas slapped his knee and said, "So you are the breadwinner then?" "Modern marriage," Amanda laughed and said, "Oh, completely. I always joke I am marrying my own dependent." Someone else shouted, "Do you get him a juice box on the way home?" And Amanda, my fiancée, the woman I had planned to spend my life with, said I should, maybe some goldfish crackers. The group roared with laughter. Time slowed down. I felt every eye in that circle on me, some laughing, some looking at me with pity, some with contempt. I felt humiliation burn through my chest like acid. But underneath the humiliation, underneath the hurt, something else was rising. Clarity. Crystal clear, undeniable clarity. This was the woman I was going to marry. This was how she really saw me. Not as a partner, not as someone doing meaningful work, but as a punchline, an embarrassment. Something to be mocked for the entertainment of her colleagues. And she was not just allowing them to see me that way. She was leading the charge. I looked down at my left hand, at the simple gold band I wore, the match to the engagement ring I had given her. I had bought it with 2 months of my salary, working extra tutoring sessions after school to afford it. Suddenly, it felt heavy, like a shackle, like a symbol of every time I had made myself smaller to fit into her world. The group was still laughing, still talking, moving on to other topics. Amanda had turned to talk to Douglas about something else. I could walk away right now. I could go home, pretend this never happened, swallow this humiliation like I had swallowed all the others. Or I could do something I had never done before. I could stand up for myself. I stepped forward into the center of the circle. "Excuse me, everyone," I said. My voice was calm, steady, clear. Conversations stopped. People turned to look at me. Amanda looked surprised. "Matthew, what are you doing?" she started to say. I looked directly at her, ignoring everyone else. "Amanda," I said, "I need to say something, and I need these people to hear it too, since you chose to do this publicly. I am an elementary school teacher. I teach 8-year-olds. I help them learn to read, to think critically, to be kind human beings. I do not make a 6-figure salary. I do not wear designer suits every day. I do not bill hours or close deals. But what I do matters. I shape futures. I give children confidence they will carry for the rest of their lives. I make a difference in ways that cannot be measured on a spreadsheet." The room was completely silent now. I could see Amanda's face going pale, her eyes wide. I continued. "I thought you understood that. I thought you respected what I do. I thought you loved me for who I am. But tonight, you made it crystal clear. You are embarrassed by me. You see me as less than. You used me as a punchline to impress your colleagues." I reached for my left hand and slowly pulled off my engagement ring. Someone gasped. Amanda's hand flew to her mouth. "Matthew, wait," she said, her voice panicked. But I was not waiting anymore. "I cannot marry someone who does not respect what I do," I said. "More importantly, I cannot marry someone who does not respect who I am." "You wanted to impress these people. You wanted them to see you as successful. Well, here is the truth, Amanda. Real success is not about money or titles. It is about character. And tonight you showed me exactly what your character is." I placed the ring on the table in front of her. It made a small sound against the wood, but in that silent room, it felt like a gavel coming down. "I hope your career makes you happy," I said quietly. "I really do. Because I will not be part of your life anymore." Amanda's shock turned to anger. "You are making a scene," she hissed. "No," I said, "you made the scene. I am just ending it." She tried to grab my arm. "We can talk about this at home." I gently but firmly removed her hand from my arm. "There is no home anymore, Amanda. I will collect my things tomorrow." I turned to face the silent crowd of attorneys and partners and spouses, all staring at me like I was a performer who had gone off script. "Thank you for the enlightening evening," I said. "I hope you all enjoy the rest of your party." Then I walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard the stunned silence break into murmurs, whispers spreading like ripples. Someone, Maybe Brad called out dude that was but his voice trailed off. I did not turn back. I walked through the ballroom, through the hotel lobby, out into the cold December night. I sat in my car in the parking lot, my hands shaking as the adrenaline started to crash. I looked at the ring I had somehow picked up on my way out, sitting in my palm, catching the light from the street lamps. Waves of emotion hit me. Relief, sadness, anger, and underneath it all, freedom. I started to cry, not from weakness, but from release. I had been carrying the weight of her disrespect for so long that I had forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. That night, I drove to our shared apartment and quickly gathered my essentials. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, books. I was out before Amanda returned. I stayed with my friend Eric, a fellow teacher who had always been supportive. Eric and his wife Jenna did not ask too many questions. They just gave me their guest room and let me be. When I finally told them what happened, they were outraged on my behalf. Man, Eric said, you did the right thing. That took guts. The next few days were brutal. Amanda called and texted constantly. At first, she was angry. You humiliated me in front of everyone, she texted. How could you do that? Then she shifted to pleading. We can work through this. Every couple has problems. Finally, she landed on blame. You are overreacting. You are being dramatic. You threw away our entire relationship over one stupid joke. I did not respond to any of it. I knew that if I engaged, she would find a way to twist the narrative to make me the villain. With Eric's help, I moved out of the apartment completely. I found a small studio on the other side of town, nothing fancy, but it was mine. It was simple, affordable, and most importantly, peaceful. Word spread quickly among our mutual friends. Some sided with Amanda, telling me I had embarrassed her publicly and should have handled it privately. But more people than I expected reached out to support me. You deserve better, they said. She had that coming. I realized that the people who truly respected me were still in my corner. I unfriended and blocked Amanda on every platform. I cut ties with the friends who did not understand why I had done what I did. The first few weeks were painful. I grieved the relationship, the future I had imagined. Marriage, kids, growing old together. All of it vanished in one night. I felt lonely in my small studio, eating dinner alone, sleeping alone, the silence sometimes overwhelming. There were moments of doubt. Did I overreact? Should I have given her another chance? But then I would remember the sound of her laughter, as she called me a babysitter. I would remember how small she made me feel, and the clarity would return. I had done the right thing. Slowly, I started reconnecting with myself. I spent more time with my teacher, friends, people who understood the value of what we did. I joined a local basketball league, something I had not had time for when I was constantly trying to keep up with Amanda's social calendar. I started reading again books I had been meaning to get to for years. I volunteered at a community center on weekends, tutoring kids who needed extra help. I realized that somewhere along the way, I had lost myself trying to fit into Amanda's world. I was finding myself again. I poured my energy into my classroom. My students noticed the change. Mr. Matthew, you seem different, one of them said. I realized I was more present, more engaged. I created a new curriculum project I had been wanting to try for months, and the kids loved it. At parent-teacher conferences, parents expressed their gratitude. One single mother struggling to make ends meet told me, "You are the reason my son loves school. Thank you for seeing him." Moments like that reminded me exactly why my job mattered, why no amount of money could replace the feeling of making a real difference. 3 months after the breakup, I realized I had stopped checking Amanda's social media. 4 months in, I could actually laugh when Eric brought up the engagement party story. 5 months later, Jenna set me up on a casual coffee date with a woman named Sarah, a kindergarten teacher at another school. We had a nice conversation, shared stories about the chaos of teaching young children, laughed about the same frustrations. It did not lead anywhere romantic, but it felt good to be out there again, to realize I could connect with someone new. 6 months after that December night, I woke up one morning and realized I felt genuinely happy. Not pretending, not faking it, but truly at peace. One Saturday, I was cleaning out my desk drawer and found the engagement ring I had taken back that night. I had been carrying it around, unsure what to do with it. I decided to sell it. I took the money and used it to fund a field trip for my class to the Science Museum, something the school budget could not cover. It felt symbolic, turning something painful into something meaningful for my students. Sitting here now, looking back on everything I have learned so much. I learned that love without respect is not really love at all. I learned that the right person celebrates who you are, not just tolerates you. I learned that it is better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel small. I learned that you should never shrink yourself to fit someone else's expectations of who you should be. I learned that my career is not less important because it pays less. Impact matters more than income. Teachers shape the foundation of society. We build the future one child at a time. I do not need anyone's validation to know that my work has worth. I learned that standing up for yourself is not about making a scene. It is about protecting yourself, respect, your dignity, your sense of self. Sometimes walking away is the strongest thing you can do. I wonder sometimes what Amanda thinks now. Did she learn anything from that night? Did she ever reflect on how she treated me? Probably not. But that is not my concern anymore. I am free. Free from judgment. Free from having to defend my choices. Free from shrinking myself to fit into someone else's idea of success. Free to be proud of exactly who I am and what I do. Here is what I know for certain. We teach people how to treat us. For too long, I accepted disrespect in small doses. Those small doses accumulated into poison. Breaking off that engagement was not about revenge or anger. It was about self-preservation. It was about choosing myself. Some relationships do not end because of lack of love. They end because of lack of respect. And respect is not negotiable. I walked into my classroom on Monday morning after that terrible Saturday night, and one of my students, a bright-eyed girl named Emma, asked me, "Mr. Matthew, are you happy?" I smiled a real smile and said, "Yeah, Emma, I really am." And I meant it. The ring was gone. Amanda was gone. But I was still here, standing tall, doing work that mattered, and I was exactly where I belonged. Sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from someone who cannot see your worth. Not because you are giving up, but because you are choosing yourself. And that is not selfish. That is survival. That is self-love. That is knowing that you deserve someone who is proud to stand beside you, not someone who is embarrassed to introduce you. I deserve that. You deserve that. We all deserve that. So here is my question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you feel less than you are? Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from someone you loved because they did not respect you? Drop a comment below and share your story. I read every single one, and I want you to know you are not alone. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes we all need a reminder that our worth is not determined by someone else's opinion of us. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope that wherever you are in your journey, you find the courage to stand up for yourself, to demand respect, to walk away from anything or anyone that makes you feel small. You are worthy. Your work is worthy. Your life is worthy. Do not ever let anyone convince you otherwise. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next story.